So in the last 4 months or so, I have fell in love with keeping fish. I got some fish tanks, and today we're building a rack in the room for all these fish tanks. Fish tanks have been sitting over here in the floor for the past few, I don't know, weeks, months. I'm not even sure how long, but it is time to build them a rack and get them off the floor. So I have these tanks sitting here on the ground in the corner of the room just because I wanted to get these tanks started and get the cycle process started. It takes a lot of time, so I just set them up. I got some soil in there, some substrate in there, and threw in a bunch of plants, and then threw in some goldfish to get these tanks cycled. Now they are fully cycled and ready to go now, at least these 4 are. So it is time for the rack. So I'm just gonna be building this rack super easy, super cheap. Now I built this rack here, just 2x4s and a bunch of screws, actually kind of planned it all together. That's not how this rack is going to be. This rack is going to just be sitting on center blocks. So we got all the materials here. We got 6 2x4x8s. We got a bunch of center blocks. Now this is where the rack is going to go, in this corner of the room. So it will take up this whole entire wall. I believe that is 8 foot. So let's get started. So I am starting with these 3 4x8x16 solid center blocks. I don't want the first shelf to be super high, so instead of having an 8-inch block, we have a 4-inch block. And then the first set of 2x4s will sit on top of that. Now I did experiment with how this 2x4 sits, and I tried doing it where all the 2x4s sit up like this, because obviously a 2x4 standing up is way stronger than the 2x4 like this. But it just didn't look good, it looked ugly, and honestly I just think this way's gonna be a whole lot better. So this is going to be laying down flat. There's 1. We will have 3 per layer. They had some pretty ugly 2x4s at the hardware store. I did find 2 good ones just for the face of it, so the ones we see will actually look good, but they are all straight. That is the one thing you need, is straight 2x4s for fish tanks. No twist, no bends, so we are good there. So I just threw on one of the 10-gallon tanks, and the spacing is good. So I want these tanks to be right over dead center of the blocks. I don't want them in the front because it may make the whole shelf like want to lean forward, and that would suck. I do not want these tanks to fall over. That is a lot of water coming out onto these floors. Don't want that. I kind of spaced out the 2x4s and made it where it can easily sit front to back right in the middle of a 2x4. There is the first layer of 2x4s. That's how that's going to be. Once it's all set up, you will not even see these back 2x4s. I'm guessing the bottom shelf is going to be 4 tanks, and it's going to take up the whole entire rack. I did the math, and it is very close to being a very perfect tight fit. I got all the blocks where they need to be. It is all perfectly straight. Now I can grab these blocks and just throw them on top. Before I get any farther than this, I want to make sure all these 10-gallon tanks fit. So I'm going to use this tank and kind of space them out and see if 4 will fit. And then I know that the other tanks are 1/8 bigger than this tank. So we will need to make sure there is 4/8 of an inch on this end. And then if there is, then we know all 4 tanks will fit. Looks like we have about 1 inch and maybe 2/8 right there. So that is perfect. Now I know we can continue the rack and not worry about the tanks not fitting. So stack up more bricks on each side. So 2 center blocks high is about 4 inches above the tanks. Now you need space above your tank to reach in, do water changes, aquascape it, do all that cool stuff. So my next question is, do I want to use a 8-inch center block and then have 8 inches above that? That will give us 11 inches to reach in, which is plenty enough. On this rack I built here, I have a 8-inch gap from here to here on each tank. So it is really easy to reach in. I've had no problems whatsoever doing water changes, vacuuming it out. So I know 8 inches is good. But if I use this 4-inch block, then we only have about a 7-inch opening, which honestly, I don't think 7 inches would be that bad. I'm gonna go ahead and set up a 4-inch. So here is our 7-inch opening. Let's just say I'm doing a vacuum change or adding water. I think it'd be pretty easy. I can reach all the way in here, move stuff around, no problem whatsoever. I kind of like that. That's not bad. Now I am thinking about doing the 2x4s on this top rack standing up, so they're stronger instead of this, like that, laying down. A lot of flex in that. But I was also thinking, I have this shelf on my wall. It has about 4 of these shelves this size. I took one off. This shelf can just collect random crap and I kind of hate it. So I was thinking, what if I could use this shelving on top of the second rack? It will add more strength to it, and it also kind of looks good. And this is already painted with oil-based enamel, so it is waterproof. If any water spills, it will not damage at least this top surface. Now again, I will have the fish tank centered over the blocks, so it is all balanced and not leaning forward or back. Now there will be a nice spacing back here for all the wires and whatever needs to come out the back of the fish tanks. So that will be like that. There will be a inch or 2 lip right there on this front of the tanks. I don't know guys, I think I like that. What do y'all think? So just the water itself, not the tanks, not no soil, all the substrate rocks, whatever. That will weigh 333 pounds for 14-gallon tanks. Now I am feeling a little bit of flex in that, so I'm gonna go ahead and flip these up. Stand them up strong, that way I have nothing to worry about ever. Again, I do not want any water spilling onto these floors. Now I know this is a fish tank rack, I'm gonna spill water. I've already spilled so much water in that corner, way more than I would have liked to admit, but I would like to not have the entire rack collapse and fall, because that would be way too much water on these floors. But let's go ahead and stand these up tall. I'm not worried about the bottom one again because it has this middle support with the brick. That's only a 4-foot span. This is a 8-foot span, so I just sat on that and no flex whatsoever, so I am way more confident with it like that. It doesn't match, but it doesn't matter. It actually kind of looks nice. It almost looks like that's a lip to the desk or the rack. I don't know. So there is the pretty much finished rack. I mean, very simple. I do need to get one more board off of this for over here, but I think that's gonna look really nice with all these tanks. The center blocks almost kind of match the wall, almost. So you almost barely see them. Although I did walk in twice and kick the crap out of this one. I'll get used to it though, you know. I will get used to it. So I got the rack done, and now I get the fun job of draining down all these tanks low enough to where I can pick them up and walk them over to the rack. This is not gonna be fun. By the way guys, my shrimp had some babies. There's one right there at the tip of my finger. I mean, they are just tiny. They were even way smaller, but they're about a week old now, maybe a week and a half. Freaking awesome. The one thing I was super excited about having these tanks was having shrimp babies, and it finally happened. Alright, so the guppy breeding tank is gonna go first. This has a ton of little guppy babies in there. So I'm gonna take all these plants out, throw them in here, it's all the same plant, and then start draining that out. And be very careful moving it across the room. Look at all these top water plants, man. So freaking cool. So I got the guppy grow out tank moved over to the rack, and I don't have a sink close to any of these fish tanks. So what I've been doing to do water changes and fill these tanks up is using a 1-gallon jug. Now, I don't want to do that. That's gonna take a lot of time to fill up these tanks and to do water changes. So what I'm gonna do is I got this filter, the hang on back filter from the community tank. I took it out, I put all of the filter media in the guppy tank. They seem to be enjoying it. They got that thing surrounded. But I threw it in here because there is a ton of live bacteria all over all this stuff. So that needs to stay alive and stay wet. But what I'm going to be doing with this filter is I'm going to take off the back, the bottom, and taking out the pump. Now I could have went and bought a pump for $10 off Amazon, but I am impatient and I don't want to wait a week for that. So I wanted to get rid of this pump out of that community tank anyways because it's just overpowered. I don't really need it. So, taking it out, and now I can still the pump from the filter. I'm gonna go wash this, and I can connect hoses to this, set this down inside of a cooler. I got a cooler I've been using to fill with water, and then I bring it to the room, and then I use a jug and just dump them out, and it takes forever. So now I can just use the pump and pump it out. I can just easily now pump the water from the ice chest and into the tank. Way better than slowly dumping them out one by one with the jug. So I'll sit here, fill it up. It will take a while to fill up a full tank like this, but if I'm just doing a water change, it'll be no problem at all. I got the guppy tank all cleaned out and done. Ignore the plants, they look horrible, but they're just kind of thrown in there for the guppies to have something. But I will change that once I actually escape this tank. But this is my first time seeing it from this side. I've only seen this tank from the long view like that, so it's really cool to see all these guppies in it like this. This is the designed way to see this tank. Once I get all the tanks on this rack, they will all be how they were designed. But they are digging these rocks. They must be eating something off of it. I'm not sure what, but... And again, these rocks were just thrown in here to keep that bacteria alive, but I mean, if they like it, it may just stay. Got the filter in here to keep that bacteria alive for the next tank. But before I work on the next tank, I feel like I need to attach this light. The light is gonna go up here in the center. So it has been a week since that last clip. We had a massive fire we had to evacuate, and I was thinking that this entire house was gonna burn down and all these fish tanks were gone. So luckily that didn't happen, and we are now back. It's been a week and we've had a water boil notice. So we've had to boil our water, and I didn't want to add that water to these fish tanks in case it killed the fish. When you have a boil notice, they add a ton of more chlorine into the water to make it safer, and obviously chlorine and fish do not mix. So instead of trying to treat it, I just decided to be patient and wait, because I don't want to kill all these baby guppies or baby shrimp and all my fish. So I decided to put a pause on the project, but that just got lifted yesterday. So I just got this tank right here filled up with water, so we are ready to move the last two tanks and fill up these two spots here. Now I still need to get the light screwed into the top, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we just need to move the last two tanks over, clean them out, fill them back up, do a water change, all that good stuff, and we'll be done with the bottom rack. Now here's the bait tank. I had some leftover bait, went fishing, and I was like, you know what, might as well throw them in a tank, better than keeping them in the little bait box there. I had this tank right here empty, ready to go, so I grabbed all this gravel right here that is full of beneficial bacteria, and threw in some bait. We got 2 bluegill in there as well. This may just be my temporary bait tank for my leftover minnows. Anyways, let's get back to finishing this bottom shelf. I got the shrimp and the extra plant tank moved over, and this is the first time seeing this tank from this front face as well. And look at the baby shrimp. You can see so many of them. So before I was counting like maybe 20-ish, and I dropped in a algae wafer over here, and earlier I counted 40. So there's for a fact 40 baby shrimp in here, and they're getting so big. They look very red. There's an adult right there. But everything else is all babies. Man, they look really good, really red. But I am drip acclimating the water from here to here. It's probably gonna take all night, but we'll fill this back up nice and slowly to drip acclimate all these shrimp. This water is also mixed with the water I took out of here. This water was maybe up to here. Took it out, put it in here, and then mixed all brand new water. And I like triple dosed the water conditioner in this water to make sure it's safe for these shrimp. I need to go ahead and also clean the glass. I was keeping just this face clean on that side, because that's where we were looking into the tank. But now we're gonna be looking into this side, so I need to keep this side of the tank clean. All right guys, so here is the finished product. Now, obviously not the finished product. I still have to finish this side, add one more piece of wood, and all the other tanks. But for the most part, the rack is done. Now I got all 4 of the 10 gallons down here, all filled up, looking freaking good. I do need to clean the snail tank again, but they look freaking awesome. It is so cool to finally see these tanks face on, or how they were meant to be seen. Now these tanks are not aquascaped at all. Just plants randomly thrown in, fish thrown in. I really just set these tanks up to get them cycled, like I said in the beginning of this video. And they are now cycled. They are now on a rack, and they can now be aquascaped and make them look really cool, which I'm excited about. Now I set this tank up. This is my girlfriend's tank. I gave her a full range to do whatever she wants to do. And this is a start to that tank. I threw a goldfish in here as well to get it cycled, but I threw everything in roughly just to get it cycled. This is not the finished product at all. It'll be a lot better. And then the bait tank. Now I went fishing again last night, and everyone gave me their bait, so I have a ton of minnows in here. So I have to do a daily water change on this guy to keep up with this many fish in this tank. We do have a way oversized sponge filter in there, but still, that is a lot of minnows. Water changes every day for this guy. I am gonna go fishing again tonight and use some of this bait, so there won't be that many in there for long, but definitely overcrowded. There is the finished product. I freaking love it. I'm gonna do a water change on this pretty soon and then move that over to where this is touching, just like these are. And then we have 6 of the 10-gallon tanks filled up and pretty much almost cycled besides this one. I cannot wait to get these tanks aquascaped, so subscribe if you're not subscribed for those videos, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Hope y'all enjoyed this one. Peace.